I stared out my office window, the glass reflecting a woman I almost didn't recognize, sleek ponytail, tailored white blouse, steady eyes. The city below hummed with its usual chaos, but inside, everything was still. My assistant had just left a stack of contracts on my desk, yet I couldn't focus on a single word. Because of one text. It came out of nowhere, glowing on my phone like a ghost from another life. "We need to talk. Please come home." It was from my mother. I hadn't heard her voice in nearly 5 years. Not since the day I packed my duffel bag, handed back my apartment keys, and promised myself I'd never beg for love again. Now, sitting in my corner office, 3 floors of glass and ambition beneath me, I could still hear her voice from that day, sharp as broken glass. "Your brother earned his reward. You? You live here, you pay rent." I took a slow breath, the silk of my blouse brushing my skin, grounding me in the present. The phone buzzed again. My brother's name this time. I could almost picture the driveway, the same one where he'd posed beside his brand new car while I stood on the porch holding a rent bill. Funny how life changes. I picked up my phone, hesitated, and smiled faintly. Looks like they finally remembered I exist. I still remember the smell of grilled corn and summer air that night. The night everything changed. Graduation day. My brother, Ethan, had the whole backyard decorated with balloons, a congratulations banner, and a cake that probably cost more than my entire month's paycheck from the diner. I stood there in my modest blue dress, holding a paper plate, trying not to feel invisible. Mom kept fussing over him, fixing his tie, handing him envelopes stuffed with cash from relatives. Dad rolled up the driveway with that proud smile he reserved only for his son. And then, the sound that would burn itself into my memory, the car horn. A silver Toyota, polished and gleaming under the porch light. A giant red bow on the hood. "Surprise!" Mom shouted. "For our graduate." Everyone clapped. Ethan laughed, hugging Dad, while I stood there frozen, my smile trembling at the edges. I'd graduated too. The same week. Same honors. But no bows, no banners, just a folded piece of paper sitting on my bed later that night. A bill. Rent for my share of the house. When I asked Mom why, she didn't even look up from the dishes. "Ethan's going places," she said. "You're still figuring things out. It's time you learned responsibility." Responsibility. The word cut deeper than she knew. I remember walking outside, my hands shaking, tears blurring the driveway lights. My grandmother, who'd come by earlier, saw me sitting on the steps. She handed me her old leather notebook, worn edges, soft cover, and said, "When they stop believing in you, write until you believe again." That night, I did. I wrote everything I felt, the humiliation, the anger, the promise that one day I'd never depend on anyone again. 2 weeks later, I packed that notebook, a few clothes, and left. No plan. No money. Just faith that I'd rather struggle alone than live where love had conditions. As the bus pulled out of town, I looked at that big, empty house disappearing behind me and whispered, "You'll miss me one day." I didn't know it then, but I was right. The first year on my own was brutal. There's no delicate way to put it. I rented a room in a half-broken house on the edge of downtown Austin, peeling paint, squeaky pipes, and neighbors who argued louder than the traffic outside. I worked mornings at a coffee shop, evenings at a thrift store, and nights writing in that same old leather notebook my grandmother gave me. Most days, I felt invisible until I met Clara, a woman in her late 40s who came into the cafe every morning, ordering the same thing: black coffee, 2 sugars, no cream. She always carried a tablet and typed furiously between sips. One morning, curiosity got the better of me. I asked what she did. She smiled. "I help people tell stories that sell." Turned out, Clara was a marketing consultant. When she learned I loved writing, she asked to read one of my pieces, an essay I'd written about resilience. The next day, she emailed me, "You have a voice people need to hear. Let's turn it into something bigger." Clara became my mentor. She taught me how to write copy, pitch clients, and build trust in words. At first, I took every job: product blurbs, small ads, social media captions. The pay was terrible, but each check felt like a small rebellion. Then came my first big break. A startup founder liked my pitch so much he hired me to run their entire campaign. It went viral. Suddenly, I wasn't just scraping by, I was saving. I started my own little freelance agency out of my studio apartment. Late nights turned into early mornings, and every no fueled another try again. There were moments of doubt, like when my laptop crashed 2 hours before a deadline, or when rent was due and a client's payment got delayed. But through it all, I kept my grandmother's words close. Write until you believe again. 3 years later, I had enough clients to hire a team. I registered my business officially. Rain Creative Group, named after myself, Lena Rain. I didn't tell my family. Not when I bought my first car, not when I moved into my downtown office, not even when my company hit 6 figures. Online, I kept things quiet. Just vague posts about busy days or grateful for new opportunities. I didn't want their validation. I wanted peace. Every milestone came with a silent victory. The first check that covered my rent without worry. The day a global brand emailed me for a proposal. The night I signed the lease for a penthouse office with my name on the frosted glass door. I never looked back at that old house. But sometimes, when I passed a dealership, I'd think of Ethan's shiny car and smile. His had wheels. Mine had wings. The message from Mom replayed in my head all night. We need to talk. Please come home. For days, I ignored it. Then Ethan called. That surprised me. He never called unless he wanted something. His voice was different this time, though, thinner, uncertain. Lena, can you come by this weekend? He asked. Things are not great. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Maybe I just wanted to see for myself what not great meant for the family who once told me to pay rent under their roof. When I drove up the familiar road 2 days later, I barely recognized the house. The once pristine white fence was chipped, the lawn overgrown, the driveway empty, no shiny car. Mom opened the door, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. Her hair was grayer, her posture smaller. Lena, she breathed, like saying my name felt foreign. You look good. Inside, Dad sat quietly at the table, a stack of bills in front of him. Ethan leaned against the wall, fidgeting. The confident grin he'd always worn was gone. I took a seat across from them. So, I said softly, what's going on? Dad sighed. Ethan lost his job a few months back. We helped him, but the mortgage. Mom interrupted. We just thought maybe you could help. Temporarily. The irony hit me like a punch to the chest. For years, they watched me struggle, never offering a dime. And now they were the ones reaching out. I could have written a check right there. But instead, I smiled faintly and said, why don't you come by my office next week? We can talk properly. They exchanged confused glances, but agreed. When they arrived at Rain Creative Group, their eyes widened before they even stepped through the glass doors. The lobby shimmered with soft gold lighting and modern art. My assistant greeted them politely, ushering them past a wall-sized logo, my name, etched in silver. Mom's lips parted. You work here? I turned from my desk, standing tall in my navy suit. Not exactly, I said. I own it. For a moment, silence filled the room. Ethan's gaze darted between the glass windows overlooking the city and the awards lining my shelf. Dad cleared his throat. You built all this? Yes, I said simply. From nothing. They sat down slowly, as if the chairs themselves demanded respect. I poured them coffee, a small gesture, but symbolic. I remembered all those years they'd served me disappointment, and now I was serving them something warm. Mom's voice trembled. We had no idea, sweetheart. Why didn't you tell us? I met her eyes. Because when I needed you most, you told me to pay rent. Ethan swallowed hard. Lena, I was a jerk back then. I know. But we're family. Family? I repeated softly. Family doesn't measure worth in cars and bills. The room went quiet again. Outside, the city buzzed, the life I'd built humming in the background. Finally, I walked to my bookshelf and picked up the old leather notebook. Its corners were worn, but the words inside had built this empire. I placed it on the table between us. This, I said, tapping it gently, was the start of everything. When you all stopped believing in me, this book kept me alive. Mom reached out, her voice barely a whisper. Lena, I'm so sorry. For the first time, I didn't feel angry. Just free. You don't have to be sorry, I said. But you do have to understand, the girl you pushed away is gone. The woman in front of you doesn't owe anyone rent anymore. Their eyes filled with tears. Mine didn't. For a moment, none of us spoke. The hum of the city filled the silence, a gentle reminder that the world kept moving, even when we didn't. I could see the confusion in their faces, the disbelief, the guilt settling in like dust. Ethan leaned forward first. Lena, I know I don't deserve your help, but things are rough. I'm trying to find work. I raised a hand gently. I'm not here to shame you, Ethan. But if I help, it won't be the kind of help you're used to. He blinked. What do you mean? I leaned back in my chair, calm and composed. I'll pay off the mortgage. But in return, you're going to work for me. His eyes widened. What? You got a degree in marketing, right? I'll start you in client outreach entry level. You'll earn your way up the same way I did. Ethan swallowed hard, glancing at Dad, who sat silently beside him. I could see the pride in my father's face crumbling. For the first time, he wasn't the one in control. Then I turned to him. Dad, I'll cover the overdue bills, but there's a condition. You start seeing a financial advisor. No more gambling, no more shortcuts. You taught me that independence comes from hard work. Maybe it's time you learned that too. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. Fair. Finally, I looked at Mom. She'd been quiet the whole time, twisting her hands in her lap. And you, I said softly. You're the hardest one to set terms for. Her eyes met mine, glistening. What do you want me to do? I exhaled slowly. Stop treating love like a reward. Stop measuring worth by convenience. If you want me in your life again, I need honesty. Not guilt, not comparisons. Just love. Without conditions. A tear slipped down her cheek. You have it. I promise. I nodded, feeling something uncoil inside me, a knot that had been tightening for years. For once, I didn't feel like the forgotten daughter or the unwanted tenant. I felt like the woman who had rewritten the story. Ethan stood, his voice low. Lena, thank you. Really? I'll work hard. I mean it. I smiled faintly. Good. Because from now on, no one gets a free ride, not even family. They left my office an hour later, quieter than they came in. And when the door finally closed behind them, I sank into my chair, staring out the window. It wasn't revenge. It was balance. Helping them didn't make me weak. It proved how far I'd come. I had power now, but I used it differently. Not to punish, but to rebuild on my own terms. And for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. The weeks that followed felt like breathing clean air after years of holding my breath. For the first time, our family wasn't built on pride or pity. It was built on accountability. Ethan showed up every morning at the office, 10 minutes early. The first few days, he stumbled through emails and client calls, clearly unused to taking orders from his sister. But slowly, something shifted. He started asking questions, taking notes, staying late. One afternoon, he walked into my office, smiling shyly. I get it now, he said. You weren't lucky, Lena. You worked for it. Dad kept his word too. I got a message from the financial advisor he'd met with, saying he was taking budgeting seriously for the first time in years. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. And Mom, she surprised me the most. She started calling just to talk, not to ask for anything. She sent pictures of her garden, little updates about her day. Once, she even texted, I'm proud of you. Those 3 words hit harder than I expected. One evening, after a long day at work, I sat on my balcony, overlooking the glowing skyline. The city felt different now, less like an escape, more like home. I reached into my bag and pulled out the old leather notebook. Its pages were worn, filled with memories of nights I thought I wouldn't make it. Flipping to the first page, I saw the faint ink from years ago. One day, I'll build something of my own. A tear slid down my cheek, but it wasn't sadness, it was peace. I closed the book gently, holding it against my heart. It was strange, really. The bill they once handed me, the one that made me feel small, unwanted, replaceable, had become my turning point. That rent I paid taught me the value of every dollar I've ever earned since. They thought they were teaching me responsibility, but what they really did was teach me freedom. I smiled, watching the lights flicker below, my reflection merging with the city skyline. I wasn't the girl begging for a place anymore. I had built one that no one could take away. And in that quiet, golden moment, I whispered to myself, the perfect ending line for the story I'd lived. My brother got a car for graduating. I got a bill for rent. But I turned that rent into an empire. Bottom of form,